Good morning and welcome to another edition of Mega Cares. My name is Tony Gonzalez. I'm so glad you guys are joining us today because I got a good friend of mine in the studio today, and I told him we're not going to talk about anything he does, which is kind of funny because usually that's what we do. We bring people in and we talk about their jobs and the greatness that they are in the community, and you don't need people to tell you that anymore. We got Steve Lavagnino with us, and he is going to talk a little bit about his path because I find that is more interesting than anything else.
Well, Tony, you told me I was coming in and you could talk about all the great things I was doing. So this is a big flip on me.
I left 2 minutes for you. I left 2 minutes, so they better be really quick, great things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm stoked to have you because we've known each other a very, very, very long time. Back in old days when people didn't know who we were and didn't care who we were, but we were in the midst back there watching everybody else do things in this town, in this city, and whatnot. So tell everybody a little bit about, obviously, your father. Kind of started there with a lot of stuff. But, go as far back as you want.
So let's go all the way back. Yeah. So because it's a little weird because so my grandparents moved here, and I actually live in the house that my grandparents built in 1940
and that's
on
not
Speed
normal,
Street.
Isn't that?
No,
do you like saying that to people and people go, how?
That's weird. Yeah. That. So my dad. So I actually. Like when I go out in my backyard, there's drawings that my dad did on the back walls and stuff like that.
Cave drawings.
Yeah, cave fire. Yeah. So grandparents been here forever, and they've since passed on, and then my dad grew up here, and so but my mom and dad got divorced when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
1972, I believe.
Wow.
So my mom decided to move away, and so us kids went that way, and which a lot of times happens in divorce.
Sure, yeah.
You go with one or the other.
Yes.
You go with mom, and so we moved to northern Idaho.
Oh my gosh!
Yes,
there's not much out there.
No, and well, back then in '72 there was nothing out there, right? So we lived in a trailer.
Oh my gosh!
With no phone, no radio, which I know is a sin.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I can't even see you.
Functioning
in a
that's why I was super quiet. Right, because there's no one to talk to, so I haven't shut up in the last 20 years. So,
and you had to have been imaginative. I talked to a buddy, Rich Ferguson. I think you know him too. It's kind of the same story, but he had to be imaginative with himself.
Right, you're all by yourself out in the woods, right? So it was back in the days when I had a 22 bolt action, and she'd be like, "All right, well, see you for dinner." I'd just cruise around in the woods.
Wow,
that was nuts. So I went to this very, very small, super strict Catholic school, and it turned out that it was in Spokane, which was about 40 miles away.
Okay,
and so I boarded during the week, Monday through Friday, and it was very strict, all boys. There's 40. So once I got to high school, there's 40 kids in the high school.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
still all boys.
Still all boys.
Oh my gosh! So you're basically being raised to be a priest.
Yes, I was. I was very disappointed. I disappointed my mom when I did not become a priest. But when I was in 7th grade, I decided I wanted to come back and try living with my dad, right?
Okay.
So I came back, and I went from this super strict, cloistered lifestyle to El Camino Junior High.
Oh, boy.
Hello, 1977.
It's like going to Vegas.
Yeah, I was like in Vegas. And I honestly, I couldn't handle it, right? Because it was like, well, wait a minute. I don't turn in my homework. I don't get paddled?
Right.
They're like, nah.
Right.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to go to class, and you won't shave my head? Yeah, no, it's fine.
They've unleashed the beast.
So the beast was unleashed for 2 years. I was a problem. I just couldn't.
And what's your dad thinking at this point? Is he like, great, I get him?
Oh, yeah. He's like,
as he's going into trouble.
Why did I bring this guy around?
And what was he doing at the time?
He was working. He was working for the county, and then he went and he was a public relations director for Pacific Offshore Pipeline Company.
Okay,
so he was a governmental affairs guy.
Sure.
And he was remarried, and she had a few kids and stuff, and the whole mix was like bringing in this crazy Amish guy and throwing him into Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, so it wasn't working. I was smart enough to realize it wasn't working, and so I was like, maybe I ought to go back.
Okay.
And so I started off my high school years back up at this Our Lady of the Most Blessed Sacrament Seminary High School, where we studied Latin. I still can conjugate Latin verbs. 40 people in the high school, graduated, and decided I wanted nothing to do with either Northern Idaho or California. I jumped out on my own and went to Arizona.
Okay, that's a good place.
Yes, it was warm.
Yes.
And I thought it would be a great place, and I knew absolutely no people in Arizona. I worked at Taco Bell, and for about 6 or 7 hours a day. I love Taco Bell. I still, to this day, I'm
Really?
thinking about leaving here and going there.
It didn't ruin you?
Oh, no.
That's good to know.
Well, and back in this day, you got one food item per shift, right?
Okay. Oh.
So that's how I ate, man.
That's a
Because
good
I
deal.
made these enchiladas that you could barely carry, right? I was like, it's still one food item.
Right.
I worked there for about 6 hours a day, and then I would go to a place called Electric Fun.
Okay.
And that was a video arcade place.
Oh, nice.
And work another 6 or 8 hours there.
Jeez.
But I was by myself, right? And so
And
it
how
was
old were
just,
you at this
I
time?
was 17, 18. I graduated
Wow.
from high school at 17. So
Okay.
yeah, I got my own apartment and tried to make it on my own. And I now, it's funny because people think like I grew up, my dad's always led a pretty charmed life.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure.
And so he's done rather well for himself.
Right.
And so
well,
people,
when he talks, you imagine like Back to the Future, because he talks like it was the 50s and the
Right.
Fonz was hanging out.
Yeah, he
and
was hanging
we
with
were
the
having
Fonz.
shakes on the corner, and it's like, what?
he did grow up in this really cool life. I mean, he grew up at the perfect time with the perfect parents in the perfect situation on the perfect block, and people sometimes associate me with that.
Sure.
So they're like, oh, you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth. It's all great.
Like, no, I
I'm
didn't.
like, dude, I freaking was 2 months behind on my rent.
Right.
I had my
Eating
car
Doritos.
repossessed. I get it, right? So I'll tell you what, that has helped me tremendously.
I bet.
Because I have a lot of empathy for anybody that's struggling. It's like, look, man,
Yeah.
they're shocked because I'll be like, dude, you're broke.
Right.
I remember when I wish I was broke.
Yes.
Zero
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a goal.
Right,
Okay.
right,
I was way behind and I was trying to get to somewhere.
Right. You're like, I don't know how I'm going to come up with $200 or $300.
Oh yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was like $200. Might as well have been $200,000, right? It was like,
Yeah.
I wanted a comma. I still remember this. It's like, I'd go to the ATM and I'd look at somebody's receipt in front of me and I'd be like,
my
this
God.
guy's got $2,000 in the bank,
He's like, you're seeing this.
I just want a comma.
Rich dude.
Yeah. I'm trying to get my last 20 out of there, but I only got $18, right? So, I tried going to school.
Okay.
Went to a couple years at Mesa Community College, and it was just me trying to go to school and have a job. Just wasn't working for me.
And were you pretty happy at that time?
Yeah. I met some
you're
friends
on your
there.
own and-
I'm staying out till
Yeah.
2 or 3 in the morning
Okay.
every night, getting up at
So life's
6
good.
and going to
Yeah, sure.
yeah. And the
You're
problem
poor,
is,
but you're happy.
Yes, I was poor and happy. That's a combination that
It
happens
is.
quite a bit, right? I found rich and happy not as easy to attain as poor and happy. But something I totally would suggest people not do, though, is I ended up getting married at 20 years old.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
that works for some people.
Sure.
It did not work for me.
It's risky. That's young.
Yeah.
You don't even
and
know yourself at that point.
I really fell into this thing where met somebody that was 5 years older, that was came from a kind of a wealthy family, and I guess I glommed onto this security blanket, right?
Sure.
It was like, okay, I'm struggling, I don't know what I'm doing, but here's somebody that
Right. It felt right.
They have a house,
Sure.
Okay, I'm in. And so, the only good thing that happened, I had 2 great kids out of that relationship, and I got introduced to. I answered an ad, and her dad happened to work at this company, Allied Signal Aerospace.
Okay.
And I started off driving a forklift there.
Oh, wow.
And I remember walking in, and the guy says, "We're willing to offer you $5.25 an hour." And I was like, "Dude, where do I sign?"
Right.
Like every hour, I'm
Right.
getting that.
You're like,
Sweet, So I drove the forklift there, and I did one of these things where you worm your way into
Sure.
better job. And after 7 or 8 years, I was a senior buyer there, working in the purchasing department, flying him back and forth to LA on their company plane, and it was awesome.
What brought you home?
Well, what brought me home was I ended up getting a divorce there.
Okay.
And that was a struggle. And then what happened was I was at work one day and I got a call. I still remember this. It said, "Hey, your dad's had a heart attack." And we thought it was a heart attack. And he's in intensive care. And I just immediately broke down because I had not had that much of a close relationship with my dad. My dad and I are so alike. DNA is proven through the two of us.
And again, if you see you now,
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine you guys not being friends back
Right.
then.
And it was one of these weird things, right? We weren't close, It wasn't, this is pre-cell phone where you're not texting back and forth all the time. I had to go to a payphone and call, and it's like, hey, how's it going?
Is that?
Yeah, and I'm sure he's thinking like, yeah, he's going to ask me for $100,
Right, exactly.
That's the kind of relationship we had, and it was, but every time I'd come over here and visit him, it was like prodigal son, never left, everything's great.
Yeah.
And he had gone through a transformation also because he then got married to Donna, which is the perfect person for him. And, I think his life really was in a better place. My life was in a much better place. Unfortunately, he had the health issue, and I came back here. And, at this time I was doing much better financially. I'm 20, I'm 30 years old or whatever.
A lot when you think about it at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Young, but been through a lot.
Been through a lot. And came back here and came back to see my dad. And thank God he had it was a scare. He had like some pericarditis or something. And then he eventually ended up having a quintuple bypass later. But that's what brought me back here. And I got back here. And at the time I had been living with my sister, Lori. Lori came back to visit him as well at that time, and she went over to KCOY where she had previously worked. She was working in Phoenix at the time, and she came back and she was like, "Man, I want to come back here. Santa Maria is pretty cool."
Right.
And
After
I
you
was
guys
like,
had seen other places.
Yeah, here I am living in Phoenix, 122 degrees. I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool little
people
town.
Are nice.
I went in. Everywhere I'd go, I was like, this is like Mayberry, man.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
I went into the bank after I'd been here a couple months, and I met this really cute person that opened up my account. Her name was Marion. I started talking to her a little bit more. I was like, hey, we went to El Camino together, and we started dating. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to go back there. Right?
Yeah, this is looking good.
This is looking good. And I actually had worked it out with my employer in Phoenix that they were trying to do some business over here on the Central Coast. So I had gotten transferred out here. So I was doing fine. I had a job and everything was going great. And weird thing was, I didn't know anything about politics. Didn't care about politics. I still don't really care about politics. But the person that lived across the street from my dad was Abel Maldonado.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about a state assembly. I didn't even know what that was. And apparently he was running at the time for this job. Well, I sat down in the backyard, started talking to him for a little bit. He ended up getting elected. And then he said, hey, would you want to come work for me? Help me out in my office and work. Sure. And I was like, yeah, it sounds better than what I'm doing.
That's like a good gig.
Yeah, this sounds like a gig. And, like I said, at that point, I couldn't tell you too much about public policy or anything.
Right. But you knew people and you knew how to communicate.
Yeah, it's all about communication.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I know this is probably going to get me in a little bit of trouble, but there's always been this huge focus on college. Now, I preach it to my kids, and they've gone on to higher, not just, one of them went to UCLA and then ended up to become a pharmacist at Loma Linda. We've got another one graduated from Long Beach. She's over at Loma Linda going to be. So I'm not saying it's not necessary.
Right.
What I am saying is there's a lot of jobs that rely on common sense.
Yeah.
And I think what we've really done is pushed a lot of kids into college when, there are a lot of jobs that you don't have to have that 4-year degree.
When we were growing up, Rigetti, even at where I was at, we had trade schools in the school. We had meat slab, we had welding, you had auto shop, because not everybody was going to go to college.
Yeah.
And those people had a passion for it, or they had some gift for it.
And I don't know if you've paid an electrician's bill lately or a plumber.
My God.
Yeah.
They're making a lot
they're
of
making
money.
bank.
Yeah, just to show up at the house.
But, really, when you get down to it, politics is really just about, and public service is more about communication and people skills, and really being able to talk to somebody and listen to somebody and hearing how to resolve a problem and having, and I learned that a lot at Allied Signal was I wasn't an engineer. And what I would do is listen to customers talk about a problem and be like, okay, I've got an engineer, but he doesn't know how to speak English to you, right? Because he's all in his gibberish jargon.
He's speaking nerd.
Right, he's speaking nerd. So I was kind of the conduit to be able to say, okay, here's what this guy's telling us, and here's how we can all fix this problem together. And, that I had that ability. That's kind of what moved me up in the company, was solving these problems.
Yeah.
That, people but it was all just communication, basic common sense. Yeah. So I worked for Able for I think 5.5 or 6 years.
And that was out of the office here in Santa Maria? Or
I was in office in San Luis Obispo, but I was traveling back and forth with Abel quite a bit.
Okay.
And Abel had his own plane,
right.
So he would fly back and forth.
Very convenient, if you can do it.
5.5 hour drive.
Yes.
As opposed to a 1 hour flight.
Sure.
So I flew back and forth with him so much that I felt like I could pretty much fly the plane, right? Because I sat next to him all the time. Funny story was one time he goes, Steve, if I had a heart attack, what would you do?
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I said, you know what? I'm pretty sure I could get it on the ground. And he goes, Lavagnino, they all end up on the ground. Okay? That ain't hard to do.
That's right.
Now, can you walk away from it? Right. That's your other thing. So while I was there, though, I got a job offer from, every 10 years they redraw these lines. It's called reapportionment. And So there was a congressman that was pretty much down in Ventura County named Elton Gallagly. But when they redrew the lines, they gave him like Lompoc, the San Ynez Valley.
Yeah.
And his office was down in Thousand Oaks. So he really didn't want to keep driving up here.
Sure.
So he wanted to open an office in Solvang. And so he called me and offered me a job at twice the pay. And I was like, I love you, Abel, like a brother.
But it's essentially at that point, whether it's for Abel or it's for Elton, you're again handling what's the situation,
doing the same job. It's just different
the
issues.
Hand, if you will.
Right. So kind of the right hand. If you're not, instead of a state issues, now is dealing with federal issues.
Right.
But still helping people.
Sure.
And one of the cool things I got to do there that I really enjoyed was anybody that's going into one of our nation's service academies, West Point Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, you have to get a congressional nomination.
Yes.
And so I would run these programs at the high schools with Academy Information Nights and trying to get these kids in and go visit the academies. And I became what's called a friend of West Point. They bestowed that honor on me because we put so many kids in there.
That's way cool.
Yeah, so it was really, really cool. And so I was going along there, and I got a phone call from Elton one day, and he goes, hey, just a heads up, you're going to find out about this in the press, but I'm planning on retiring. And I was like, so like in 2 years? And he was like, no, like in the next 2 weeks.
But that's my job, man.
Exactly. So I don't care.
What am I going to do for work?
I don't care who you are, or how well established you are. We all got mortgages and car payments and insurance. I got kids in college.
And you were enjoying what you were doing.
I loved what I was doing. And I hung up the phone and I just stared at my desk for about 30 seconds. I was all by myself.
Right.
I was just sitting there going like, okay, let's figure this out, So called my wife and, she's like, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. It's okay. And then he called me back later in the day and he goes, hey, I kind of reconsidered and, but what that did is put a light in my head that, hey, I got to look out for number one.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm living by that guy's plan.
Right. I'm on his plan.
I need to be on my own plan.
So I got to be on my own plan. And, I kind of got jaded a little bit with the working at the national level. Mm-hmm. Even then, before Trump came along, everybody forgets that, this isn't something new.
Right.
This was the Bush administration, Clinton.
Right.
And everybody hated everybody, and I'd get all these phone calls, just people screaming at me. And I remember asking Elton one time, I said, you've been in Congress 25 years. Like, what were you working on when you first got here?
Right.
And he goes, let's see, immigration reform, Social Security reform. Same crap, right?
Wow. And this is pre 9/11?
No, it's right after 9/11.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so then we got that whole thing going on, right?
Jeez.
So I'm like, okay, I don't really see... I started getting jaded a little bit with government. I'd been working in the state assembly, the state level, and the government. I was like, federal level. I'm like, not feeling this. Right. I don't want to run for Congress. I don't want to run for the state. And then Joe Centeno announced that he was thinking of stepping down. I was like, you know what? County level is really a golden boy. Yeah,
things can happen.
So I decided to run. I told Elton. He's like, hey, totally support you. It's great. And so decided to run and. I really looked at it as like a member of Congress, no matter how cool it is, you're one of 435 members.
Sure.
So you might have a great idea, Tony, but you got to convince some dude in North Carolina that this is also a good. And
or you got to spin some kind of deal so that it happens.
And it's all give and take. And you're
that's grossness. Now you're at gross level.
Right. and to save me from gross level is I came home and told my wife, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. So what do you think? Because I said, this is dragging you into this as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
And her deal was, look, I hate politics.
Yes.
And if you ever change what you believe in to get a vote or to move something, we're done. I mean, this is, you got to quit and I will not support you any longer.
Right.
So here's your deal. You go out and say what you really believe in,
Right. And if you
get elected, you get elected. And if you don't, hey, I'll still love you and we'll move on from there.
So for me,
yeah,
because I love all of this. I've loved it since I was a kid. I would sit in that freaking room with Hobbs and everybody and watch.
Yeah.
My mom would drop me off on Tuesdays to watch. That's how much I love being around it.
So you're a political nerd.
I am a political nerd.
Yeah.
West Wing is my favorite show.
I love West Wing. Yeah.
But beyond that, it's helping the people and doing all that. But like when I had that talk with my wife, you know, and had that discussion, we said, you know, that's a big jump for everybody. That's a big commitment your wife gave to you and said, you know, I'm right there behind you,
right,
but don't change who you are. I'm going to be that person behind you.
The really weird thing is when you do put yourself out there, you do open yourself up for people, you know,
sure.
I mean, you don't win with 100% of the vote.
Because that's my wife's worry is I'm afraid what you're going to say.
Right.
And what they're actually going to hear who you really are.
Right.
Because you've been playing it safe for so long.
No,
but when you step out
true.
like you did,
you
now
do step
you've
out.
got to stand out on your
own.
And
you got to say what you really believe in.
Sure.
And then, like I said, there's going to be, you know, I mean, if you win a race really good, you pound it, you win 60-40, right?
Yeah.
So that still means 40% of the people said, we don't really care for you.
Right.
Okay.
And it's really two-part. It's the race.
Right.
And then you got to get to work.
Right. Okay. So that's what you have to really separate. And I don't think that's done well enough. I've been lucky enough the last 2 times I didn't have a challenger. Right. So I just got to focus on doing the work.
Yeah.
And so, so I haven't really had a race since 2010.
Right.
So we're 2019.
Because it really takes away from that work.
It does. It does. Now, at the county level, it's not as bad and it's not as prolonged. Like, my wife asked me the other day, so when's the presidential election? And I'm like, it's in November of next year. We still got to put up with all this crap. Right. I want my TV back right now. But, so, you know, and the other thing was, so my dad comes to me and he says, because when I was thinking about doing it, he goes, hey, that's a big step.
Yeah.
And he goes, no pressure or anything, but just so you remember, your great-grandfather never lost an election, and I never lost an election.
Dad, really?
Thank
Come
you.
on.
Appreciate
Seriously, that's what you're going to throw at me right now?
Exactly. I don't need this.
Jeez.
But
don't
you know,
that kid.
The weird thing is, I found out is it doesn't, hearing the negative from people that you don't agree with you, because you're not going to agree with everybody on everything. Hearing the negative really doesn't bother me personally. I mean, I've read some pretty nasty things on comments and stuff, and I'm like, okay, it just rolls off
somebody's opinion, and then there's hearing just being a nasty
personal attacks,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, like, oh, he's taking money from somebody.
And you
it's
almost
like,
got to pull that out and go, okay, but what do you
really?
Want?
What's your heartache with?
Yeah,
and I'm cool with that. But I'll tell you who it does affect is your family.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my wife's ready to go to war, you know?
I mean, don't read
kids
Facebook,
are like,
don't look at the comments.
I told her, hey, don't ever even read them.
Sure.
And then, of course, my dad would call me and go, hey, did you read the comment, son? I'm like, it's kind of trying to avoid those, but thanks for bringing it up.
Good dad, you're helping out a lot.
Yeah. And, obviously, I would be stupid to say that having my last name and my dad's service to this community didn't help me. Of course it did. It gave me a huge leg up. And,
but you did it on your own.
Right.
And he didn't push you to do it.
No,
hear the
absolutely
story,
not. Actually, he told me.
I mean, it's kind of a miracle he actually ended up going to do that.
Yes. And he was not 100% sold that I'd be able to pull it off, to be honest with you. And, but, we had a few conversations and I was like, look, this is what I really want to do. And you know what? I wasn't worried about. My wife took the pressure off of me of losing. Mm-hmm. Her thing was, look, I'm going to love you no matter what.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. Yeah. It's all good. Just do it. And so it really freed me up to, kind of do it the way I wanted to do it instead of run scared and, you can't do this or that. So now I've been lucky. That's been, I've been in office now for 9.5 years.
What's your favorite thing about being there now that you've made it to kind of that part at least?
I think my favorite.
Been there long enough to rest.
Yeah. My favorite thing is that I'm one of 5 votes.
Yeah.
And if I can convince 2 other people that we kind of need to change the entire, the county we have 4,200 employees and it's $1 billion budget. Okay. So when I hear, perfect example, we have a place called Transitions Mental Health Association, and they have this awesome program where they have a place called Growing Grounds out on Foster Road. And what they do is they take people suffering from mental illness and depression, and they have this garden and they grow vegetables and they have plants, and then they do a farmer's market and they actually pay these people.
Right.
And it's therapy, right? Also. Well, the problem is it's getting cut out of a budget.
Oh, no.
And so, I'm like, this just isn't right. I got to do something about this. So I go to a couple of my colleagues and I'm like, hey, come out, let's see it, let's feel it, talk to the people.
Sure.
And, in this budget cycle, it's going to be in the budget. And so it's those little things. They're just little tiny victories, but it actually really changed somebody's life.
Sure. Even if it changed one person's life.
Right. And that's the other thing I've come to know is that, like, I don't want to run for Congress or anything. That stuff's so, you don't get anything done.
Right.
But at this level, you still can get things done. You still can, and I know we have tons of shortcomings. We do a crappy job on the roads and we should be doing better. And
there's always
tons,
just like at home.
Exactly. And I have on my wall in my office, I have pictures, frames of all the county supervisors, the 5th district supervisors that came before me. Okay. And when things are going bad, now you start talking. We start, we're screwed up. I look up on the wall and I'm thinking well, there's Curtis Tunnel. What was he worried about?
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure he thought there was something that was like, oh, this is going to totally bankrupt the county. And, here we are. And
it's crazy. They were all human. They all maybe didn't have that path like you as well, but they ended up being there and they did something about it.
Well, and as my dad told me, he goes, hey, the cemetery's full of people that supposedly we couldn't live without.
Yeah.
So don't put yourself on too high of a pedestal.
Right.
There's going to be somebody come in as soon as you're done. They'll forget about you. They'll put your name on a park or whatever. But there's going to be another person in that is going to, and it doesn't take that long to forget those people.
I would almost imagine, though, that you are like, great, I want that. I want 3 people. I want all those people to want to be a part of that.
Oh, exactly.
Because really, I would imagine, it seems to me, you seem happy doing what you do. It seems like you get more out of it than anything.
Big time, because... especially the work we do with veterans and those types of things. Yeah. I've been able to now go and speak at the state level, California State Association of Counties and the National Association of Counties, tell them what we're doing here and trying to get the message out to everybody, but totally get way more out of it than with the service, because all you need is that person in Santa Maria. Dude, I don't know, maybe people serve in other areas and they see the same thing.
Sure.
But this city is just so giving,
amazing,
and the people are, and you see the same people over and over and over and over again. Just give, no matter what the cause is. There's so many.
And you think
Mike Gibsons, Tom Martinez's in the world that are just like, Vince Lopez. It's like anything you need, I'm here. We'll get it done. Yeah, they don't want to get any credit for it. It's just like, let's do it.
Yeah, that's what makes it great. Man. I love it. Well, I'm glad you came in today. I could spend an hour with you because we didn't even touch on certain stuff that's there, but we'll get you to come back again.
Absolutely.
I love hearing that part, and I think everybody needs to hear those parts because we see you on news, we see you on the newspaper, and not many people get a chance to get to know you.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people think they know you. That's what I really love.
Oh, they see me in a suit and everything, and they're like, I know.
I know Steve Lavagnino. I'll be able to do this or that. I'm like, you go ahead. You make that call. Go ahead and see what happens there. It blows my mind how now that you're at that level, but you've stayed the same person. You really have, and that's not everybody does that. And I
did get to take that. One thing I did take from my dad is that if my dad goes in a restaurant, you don't know if he's talking to the owner or the guy in the back washing dishes. It's like, hey, we're all, everybody's. And
I
love
for that about that generation, because that truly was that generation. They did everything. My wife's family, same thing. He was the owner of the grocery stores, but he was the first to go bag the groceries. Yeah, and that's a huge lesson to see and do. Last night I was so excited you were coming in. I was telling my family we were just having dinner, and I was telling my daughter. My wife and I were telling her how long we've known each other, and I said, my funniest story is it was about a month or so after you got elected, and I don't forget why I showed up in your office, but I showed up at your office, and I walk in, and
probably to yell at me about something.
I think I was actually I forget what it was, something with radio or something, and so I go in to go see you, and there's a lady up front, and she's really nice, and she tells me to wait, and so she takes me in.
Oh, here's
coffee.
County Supervisor.
Yeah, here comes it, and I'm like, wow, and I'm trying not to blow your scheme. I'm like, this is a good deal, man. You should be very proud. Walk in, beautiful office. You got the flags. It looks like I walked to the Oval Office. door closes and you look at me and you're like, isn't this cool? And I go, dude, what's up? He goes, hey,
I'm fooling a lot of people.
He
Yeah.
says,
She thinks I'm somebody.
That gal up front will get me whatever I want. You want some water? I'm like, no, I'm good. You're like, you want to sit behind the desk? I'm like, yeah, I do. My daughter was laughing so hard. She goes, I love that fact to know that you guys were just as giddy about the whole deal.
We're crazy kids.
It's surreal.
It is. Like, I remember I went to D.C. when I was working for Elton, and the staff there was like, well, Congressman Gallagher this. And I'm like, you mean Elton? Talking about Elton? So I went into his office, and beautiful. You know, you could see the Capitol, and I sit back and I put my feet up on his desk, and they were like, oh my God, he might come in. So what?
Care?
Yeah, who cares?
Maybe I'll take a picture of
it. So, you know, I mean, I value I understand that the office means something.
Yes.
But dude, we have way too much, too little fun.
Yes.
And
I love that about you.
We can have a good time and still do good work. Yeah. You know, that's what it's all about.
I appreciate all you do and all you have done.
And I appreciate what you do for the community.
And everything.
Absolutely.
So much. We'll have you back again because I know we'll have tons of questions of people wanting more even out of you. I could go all day, I'm telling you. Once again, Steve Lavagnino, of course, you'll see him everywhere. And don't call him and complain. He doesn't need that.
Call him a
joke. Give him a good joke.
Give me some material.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
All right, Tony. Thank you.
We'll catch you guys next week right here on Mega Cares. Thanks for tuning in.